Okay, so for this week's guitar lesson, we have a very slow and mellow lead. It's easy to play from a technical standpoint because it's so slow. Most of what we're going to be focusing on is the space in between notes. We're going to break everything that I played in the intro, we're going to break it down note for note, and I'll talk through where all the notes are coming from. But we're really going to be focusing on letting the music breathe, letting this, when you're improvising, letting the notes breathe. They need to breathe just like the voice does. It's actually easy for the musician, and it's easier for the listener as well. It's not as chaotic as when you're trying to cram too much music into a small space. So you just have to remember that. So if nothing else, let this lesson be a reminder to you that it's okay to just play nothing at all or just play a single note. Whatever it takes to make it sound good. In this video, we're going to go through the first half. If you'd like to watch the part 2 video, download the tablature, access the on-screen tab viewer, and also get the MP3 jam track for this lesson. You can get those things by going to activemelody.com, go to the weekly lessons page, and do a search for EP476. Okay, before we jump into this first part, let me just play that first intro one more time just so we can get the sound in our ear, and then we'll talk it through. Okay, so the first thing that I played goes like this. All right, so what I'm doing there is I'm playing an F. That's an F chord. But then it goes to the C. And when it goes to the C, that determines the key of the song. So when you first hear the F chord, you don't have any context other than that F chord. So you don't really know what's coming next. It is not until you get to the second chord, which is the C chord, that you go, oh, okay, your brain does this. It knows, okay, there was a resolve there once you go to that C. That becomes our root, that's our home. And so the F was actually just a tension chord. It was the 4 chord that resolved to the C. So you don't always know what key the song is in by that first chord, and this is a good example of that. Most of the time that's the case. Whatever the first chord is, usually that's the key of the song, but not always, and this is one of those cases where that's not the case. Had I gone from the F to a B flat, it would have had a totally different feel. And so then you realize, okay, wait, now the F is the one, that's the home. And then I went to the 4 chord. So it's a totally different vibe. Your ear hears things different. It's a different context. So the song is in the key of C, but we started on the 4 chord, which is our F. So, and the way I did that was I barred first 4 strings on the 5th fret here. Now we're going to be focusing on strings 4, 3, and 2. And if you look at that, when I play that, that's a C chord, that's a C triad. And I've talked about this in other lessons, but there's our C chord using the A shape. So there's the triad there. Here's our C chord using the G shape out of the cage system. You can see that triad lives in both of those shapes there. So that's going to be my anchor there. I'm going to keep my index finger there. And I hammer on my middle finger to the 6th fret, 2nd string, ring finger to the 7th fret, 4th string. And I'm playing strings 2 and 3 with my middle finger and ring finger, and then I'm picking on the 4th string. You could do that however you want. That's just how I do it. You could just pick all of that, just brush down. That would be fine as well. And this sound, hammering onto this chord, is something I talk about a lot. That's the Keith Richards move. I also think of that as Ry Cooder. This has a very Ry Cooder kind of vibe to me. Anyway, what's going on there, when I go to this shape, I'm actually playing an F chord. And if I were to put my pinky up here, you could see that that's the F chord using the C shape out of the cage system. Now we don't have to worry about our pinky. We're not going to be using that. We're just going to be focused on strings 4, 3, and 2. So I started with that, and then I went, let me show you that. So when I'm playing this, I'm only playing strings 4 and 2. So I'm picking the 4th string, and then I'm plucking with my ring finger the 2nd string. So I'm sliding up I'm keeping that shape there, and I'm sliding it up 2 frets. So my ring finger comes up to the 9th fret, 4th string. We go up to there, I pluck the 2nd string, and then I slide them both down. I didn't pick that when they went back down. Now let's talk through the timing of this real quick. So this comes in right on the 1. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So this happens right after you say 4. It would technically be on the E if you're thinking of E and A. So it's like 1 E and A, 2 E and A, 3 E and A, 4 E and A. But anyway, that's what's going on. You don't have to worry so much about exactly. Just try and do a little slide. You could do it whenever you want. There's no right answer on this. So all of that represents the F chord. Even though when I slid up here, we're technically going to a G chord, right? Because that would be your G chord using the C shape, which would be the 5 chord. So we kind of just went like this. 4 chord, 5 chord, back to the 4 chord. Now we're going to go to the 1 chord. Okay, so now the song goes to the C chord, and I went. All right, now this is really cool. I love this, very pedal steel sounding. And once you see this, once I explain where this is coming from, you will have this and you can use this in anything going forward. It's gonna be a big light bulb, I hope. So I'm starting up here with my pinky on the 8th fret 1st string, and then I use my middle finger on the 7th fret 3rd string, and I push. I actually use both of these fingers, middle and index finger, to push that. So I hit the pinky first, 8th fret 1st string, and then I slide that into place. Now you got to match it with your ear. That's that's one of the hard things to do, where you're holding one note. It's kind of a reference note, and then you're trying to get where it harmonizes with that note. Now the other thing I should have mentioned is when I play that, when I put my pinky there on that 8th fret, I'm actually barring strings 1 and 2 with my pinky. And here's why. Because I go like this. So when I hit this note, that's also on that 8th fret, but it's on the 2nd string. Then I release the tension, and then I come down here, let that ring out, and I come down here to the 5th fret 3rd string. So all together, that pedal steel lick goes like this. Beautiful. Now here's what's cool about this. This is stuff you already know. This is your major pentatonic scale, pattern 1, for C. So remember, the song is in the key of C. That's our root chord, right? And we're now playing over the C chord. So when I pictured this, I was still picturing my little triad here that I was making with my index finger, and I know that that triad lives inside of major pentatonic scale, pattern 1. I can see it in there, right? So when I know that, I have my boundaries. Now I have all these lick possibilities that I can pull from this major pentatonic scale. And so this pedal steel lick is right out of your major pentatonic scale, pattern 1. You can see it now, right? So now hopefully a light bulb's going off and you go, oh, I can use that pedal steel kind of thing anytime I want, and I can connect it to this triad or to your major pentatonic scale, whatever makes the most sense in your mind to connect it to, but try and always connect it to something so you can use it again in the future. Okay, so after the pedal steel lick, then I came down and went, right? Now we're just going back to the F chord. So we're going back to where we started. So I walked it down from the C, we go down to a B flat, and then to the F. Now the B flat, I'm not gonna get into that. I could get lost in it. Just know that this is a transition. It's a normal walk down you hear in music to go when you're going back to where you started. You take the note you're on, or the chord you're on, you go down 2 frets, and then you go to that chord. And it works in most cases. So I don't want to go any further into theory on that bit. But from the C, when I played this, I was just using one finger, my index finger, and I played it like that, just strings 4, 3, and 2. There's my C, down to my B flat, and then I did a F chord down here. This is probably the first place you learn to play an F chord. So I just played my F chord, but I hammered on my middle finger, which means I have to bar the first 3 strings on that 1st fret. So you have It's a really cool transition to get you back to the F. Now while the song hangs out on the F, I came up here and went. Now what is that? It's just an F chord. I'm thinking chord shape, so I've got an F here. I've got my F chord here using the D shape. This is your F note. That's how you can find that. If you like that little first 3 strings D shape, just whatever the note name is on this note, it's the top of your triangle there, tip of your triangle. So that's how I memorize that. So I've got my F chord, and then I came up here and went. It'd be like an F sus4. So I put my pinky on the 6th fret 1st string, and then did a pull off, and then I played strings 3 and 2. So I went. But notice the space that's happening there. So we went 2, 3, 4. Lots of space there. So you have plenty of time to think about your next move and plenty of time to get your fingers in position. Okay, so now the song goes back to the C chord, and I played. Now let me show you this. This will be another takeaway. A lot of you will know this, but some of you may not. So what's going on? I've got my bar back where it was, barring those first 4 strings on that 5th fret because of my C triad. And then I do this. Started with this. So while I've got the bar there, I go ahead and do a hammer on. This time, middle finger goes down on the 6th fret 2nd string, just like it did before, but my ring finger is now on the 3rd string, playing the 7th fret. So we played that, and then I hit the 4th string behind the bar there on the 5th fret. So that's the lick. And then, now this lick, I'm going to let my bar come up all the way up to the 5th string. So it's the first 5 strings now. We're going to play strings 5 and 4. And we're going to hammer on to the 7th fret 5th string, but only playing those 2 strings, 5 and 4. And I hit it twice. Okay, so what we're looking at here is a bunch of licks that live off of this triad here. I'm going to put a micro lesson up on the screen that talks about this, so you can check that out if you want a little more detail. But basically, what I've got here is if I'm playing this triad, I can go to this shape, and that's a harmony of the major scale of this chord. So if this is a C chord, I can play my C major scale using this little shape here. Watch this. Just strings 2 and 3. So I've got one shape that looks like this, where they're both in the same fret, and then I've got another shape where they're staggered like this. And it's just a combination of those. So you have this, slide that up 2 frets, now you put them both back in the same fret, stagger them, slide that up 2 frets, both in the same fret. So you can see that it just keeps going. It's the major scale, but it's harmonized. And it really starts off of this triad. And I love that. I can always find these nice little harmonies off of this. There's so many cool things you can do, even with the blues. It all comes back to that. Okay, so there was that lick, and then you've got this, which also lives off of that kind of that 5th fret. So you can see all the things I can do between the 5th fret and the 7th fret on strings 5 and 4, on strings 4 and 3, and then we come up to strings 3 and 2, and you've got that harmony thing I was showing you. So that should give you a world of possibilities of really cool harmonies that you can play off of a chord shape, off of this triad here. All right, so let me back up and play through everything we've learned so far. I think this is a good stopping point for this part 1 video. If you'd like to join us for part 2, download the tablature and download the MP3 jam track. You can get all of those things, the extra stuff, by going to activemelody.com, go to the weekly lessons page, and search for EP476.